everyone, welcome to my channel 10 Ways to Wear It. I'm Alicia, and on this channel I take one fashion item or one fashion trend and show you all 10 different ways to wear it. Today is going to be another cooking video, and that's why I'm standing in my kitchen. We're not on fashion today, we are on food, honey, and I'm super excited about today's video. Do you all have like those childhood staples that you just love when your mom would make them? Like you would just get so crazy about it and you felt like you just couldn't get enough? Well, I'm gonna be cooking 3 of my childhood staples today, my favorites, but I'm gonna be upgrading them. So we're gonna be making meatloaf. That was one of my favorite things to eat as a child, but I'm gonna be upgrading it. You guys will get the full recipe and I'll walk you through all of the steps. We're also gonna be doing cheeseburger helper. Now that was like one of those things that was like, okay, not everybody liked it, but I loved the way my mom made cheeseburger helper as a kid. I was obsessed with it, and I got a little twist on it today. We're also gonna be making pot pie, but we're not doing chicken pot pie, we're doing shrimp pot pie. So let me go ahead and load up the apron because we are getting in the kitchen, y'all. I'm strapping on and I'm ready to go. Okay, you all, so I have all of my ingredients for this teriyaki meatloaf with eggs inside. I have everything laid out here. I'm gonna go ahead and move this plant out of the way because I see that it's kind of in the way. So I'm gonna sit it back here on top of the deep freezer. But I got everything laid out. I'm gonna go ahead and turn you guys around to actually show you the ingredients. I love to do that so that you can see exactly what I'm gonna be using when I make these things. But I do have a couple of tips and tricks that I'll be sharing with you all, so I'll share those as we move along. But yeah, I'm gonna spin you guys around right now and we're gonna get into these ingredients. Okay, so really quick, here are the ingredients for the teriyaki flavored meatloaf with eggs inside. Of course, you're gonna need ground beef. This is a 3-pound roll. I have some diced onions here, panko breadcrumbs. I love that Trader Joe's started putting them in these cute little bags. I also have some garlic, I have some thyme, and I have 2 different kinds of parsley here. I have curly parsley and flat leaf parsley. You're also gonna need 2 kinds of eggs. You're gonna need hard-boiled eggs, which I just bought these eggs, but you can definitely boil your own. I hate boiling eggs because I feel like the shells never come off easily. So I just bought these eggs from Trader Joe's that are already boiled. And of course, you're gonna need some fresh eggs. I love organic eggs, and this is my favorite brand of eggs. You can get these at Target. I think you can also get them at Ralph's and Kroger's and Safeway and Vons. So I love Pete and Gary's eggs. Those are my favorite eggs. But I also have my seasonings here. Of course, you're gonna need salt, pepper, but I have some really cool seasonings from Trader Joe's. I have this mushroom umami flavored seasoning, which is going to give it a nice like Asian flavor. And then I have this everything but the leftover seasoning from Trader Joe's, and it's really good. It's a really savory seasoning. So these 2 are going to be awesome in the meatloaf. And then meatloaf, traditional meatloaf generally has ketchup. Some people add Worcestershire sauce. Some people add A1 sauce to their meatloaf. But instead of using those flavors, the ketchup and the Worcestershire, I'm going to be using this sweet and tangy barbecue sauce. This is from Kroger or Ralph's. And I'm gonna mix it with this teriyaki sauce, and I'm also gonna add a little bit of this deep roasted sesame sauce here. And these are gonna give my meatloaf a nice Asian spin. And so I'm gonna mix these together in a bowl, and I'm gonna add those to the raw meatloaf when I mix it. And I'm also going to add a little bit to the top of the meatloaf to give it a nice little glaze. So those are gonna be the flavors that I'm gonna use and the seasonings. Of course, I have some things here. I got my shears, my kitchen shears, and then I have some gloves here because I do not like mixing the meatloaf with my hands. So, and that it really is the best way to mix meatloaf is to use your hands, because you got to make sure that everything gets dispersed evenly, all the breadcrumbs, the eggs, and everything. So I like to use some gloves to do that. I always have a box of gloves in my kitchen. So that's what those are for. But those are the ingredients. Let's go ahead and start our prep. I have my pan on the stove heating up so that I can saute those onions. I do not like putting raw vegetables in my meatloaf because sometimes they don't cook all the way. So I'm going to saute the onions, add the garlic, and then we're going to have that on the side while we mix our meatloaf. So let's get into it. Okay, so I've added some vegetable oil to my pan, and now I'm gonna go in with about 1.5 cups of those onions. Some of these onions are gonna be to go inside of the meatloaf, and some are gonna be for the glaze on top. So I'm gonna add about 1.5 cups so that I make sure I have enough for both. I'm also gonna go on top of that with some salt and pepper. So we're gonna add a little bit of black pepper to that, and about a teaspoon and a half of salt. So like a heaping teaspoon of salt. Give that a nice stir, and we're gonna let those onions get nice and soft before we add our garlic. We don't want it to burn. While those onions are cooking, another thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and preheat my oven. And I wanna preheat it to 350. That's gonna be perfect to cook the meatloaf. You wanna cook the meatloaf slowly from the inside, so you don't wanna turn the oven up too high. 350 is great. And for the size of meatloaf that I'm gonna make using a 3-pound log of ground beef, it's gonna have to cook for about an hour. So 350 is perfect. Gonna go ahead and get that going so the oven can start heating up. Okay, so really quick, I wanted to share a quick tip slash trick with you guys. This is something that I always do when I'm cooking with herbs, fresh herbs, cilantro, parsley, things like that, green onions. And what I like to do is I go ahead and wash them off, and then you know that they come with like a little rubber band on them. I use that rubber band to hang them upside down over the sink so that they can drip off the water. And this is just a great way to let your herbs drain off, you know, without having to like let water accumulate on your counter or somewhere like that. So this is the curly parsley and the flat leaf parsley that I'm draining off. And then usually I'll just take like a couple of paper towels and then like squeeze them, and then all of the water is pretty much out of them, and they stay fresher that way, in my opinion, than being like soaking wet. So I just wanted to share that tip with you guys, because you know, something that we all can do. We all have a sink, so you can just hang your herbs upside down and let the water drain off after you wash them really good, because you got to wash those bugs out of there. Okay, so I wanted to show you all this really quick while the oven is heating up and I'm working on other things. I went ahead and kind of spun dry my little herbs, and just to get the rest of the water off of them, I just wrapped them in a paper towel for a couple of minutes, but most of it drained off with that little trick that I showed you all. But now I'm just adding them to my little mini food processor. This is from Hamilton Beach. I got it from Amazon, and I will link it. This is the best thing ever. But I'm gonna go ahead and blend my herbs to chop them up. So this is a shortcut. If you don't want to spend a bunch of time chopping up herbs, just use your food processor. It makes it so easy. It makes it so easy, y'all. Okay, and just like that, my little food processor made light work of chopping up my herbs, and now I'm just going to add them to this little plastic container here, because I'm going to be using these for a few of the recipes in today's video. So quick tip for y'all, moving on. Okay, so now that our onion mixture is all ready and I've let it kind of cool down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing the ingredients into the meatloaf. So the first thing I'm going to add is 3 eggs, and I've kind of whisked them together so that they're separated. So I'm going to pour that into the bowl. Then I'm going to add some of these herbs into the bowl. Just going to grab my spoon, and I'm just putting about, I say about a heaping tablespoon of those herbs into the meatloaf mix. Doesn't need too much, but we do want it to have a nice little herby flavor. So add that. Then I'm going to start going in with my panko. Now the panko is something you kind of have to eyeball, because you want to make the consistency that you want your meatloaf to be. I like my meatloaf really moist, so I don't add too many breadcrumbs. I'm using a 1 cup measure, so I'm going to go in with 1 cup first, and then I'm going to add probably about a half a cup, because I know I'm going to need at least a cup and a half, but beyond that I'm not really sure how much I'm going to be adding. So go in with another half a cup of breadcrumbs, and in this bowl right here I have that mix of the sauces. So I have that deep roasted sesame sauce there. This is like a marinade that you can also use as a salad dressing. I have that sweet and tangy barbecue sauce, and I have the teriyaki in this bowl, and I just whisked them all together very nicely. And I love the color that they are, because part of this is going to go into the meatloaf mix, and part of it is going to be used as a kind of a glaze for the top of the meatloaf. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some of my onions first. They're not hot, they did cool down. I just turned the skillet on just a minute ago again, so I'm gonna go ahead and add those in. You don't want to add these too hot, because you don't want them to scramble your eggs. And so I'm gonna add most of this. Some of it I'm gonna save back, because I'm gonna put that glaze in here and let it thicken up. And I do want it to have a little bit of onions and garlic on top of the meatloaf. So I'm gonna leave about that much in the skillet, and I'm gonna move back over here and go ahead and pour in some of that glaze. And I'm saving back about that much for the top of the meatloaf. So now we go in with the hands, y'all. And I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna start doing it one-handed, but I definitely won't be able to finish this one-handed, but I'll just let you guys see how I get in there. And I really just try to squeeze and keep the meatloaf nice and airy. You don't want your meatloaf to be too dense, but at the same time, you want it to stay together. So I'm just gonna give this a really good mix with both of my hands, and then I'll be back to show you what it's looking like before we make our meatloaf mold and put those hard-boiled eggs inside of it. Okay, you guys, so my glaze is on really low, and just for transparency's sake, I did add about 1/4 of a cup of honey because that's gonna go on top of the meatloaf, and I want it to be a little bit sweeter than what I put inside of the meatloaf because I want it to be more of like a glazy type of texture. But I'm leaning down because I'm facing you guys down because I'm getting ready to mold the meatloaf. So I have this nonstick pan. This is from TJ Maxx. The brand on here says Jola. These pans are amazing. I have a whole bunch of them in different sizes and different shapes and things, but I'm gonna go ahead and sit that down. I'm gonna move you guys down even more so that you can see. And now I'm gonna just go ahead and take my meatloaf and just splatter down. And I do need to grab the eggs. Fortunately, I forgot to take the eggs out, y'all, and I'm gonna have to wash my hands because I cannot be touching stuff all in my kitchen with, you know, this meat on my hands like this. So what I am doing is I'm leaving about 1 inch on the bottom underneath. So you don't want the eggs to be sitting on the pan. You want them to be sitting on the meatloaf. So I have about 1 inch of meatloaf underneath. And then I'm gonna just kind of form, I wanna be able to put 4 eggs in the middle. So I'm just kind of forming up the sides so that I know that I have enough meatloaf to cover the top. And one thing you do need to remember is that when you cook it, it's going to kind of thicken up. So, you know, kind of like a hamburger, you know how it swells in the middle as you fry it. So just remember that you don't need to have like too much on the bottom or too much on the sides, just enough to cover the eggs. So got a nice little scooped football stadium here. If you guys can see how that looks, like a nice hollow inside. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick and grab the eggs. Alrighty, I washed my gloves and I grabbed the eggs out of the refrigerator. Now we can go ahead and actually finish things up. So I'm gonna tear open these eggs. And these eggs don't have any liquid in them, thank goodness. That makes everything so much easier. So I can actually just take them out and just start lining them inside of the meatloaf. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me see. Okay, that's a good position. Let me just move this out of the way. Ooh, and my glaze is starting to bubble. Let me stir it a little bit, you guys. Hold on. Okay, so like I said, I really want to put 4 in the middle so that pretty much every slice of meatloaf has egg in it. I'm gonna go ahead and put these away while my hands are still decent and clean. And we're back. So, wanna kinda push those down in there, line them up nice and neat, and then we're just gonna start forming around the eggs. Just like that, just kinda closing everything up around the eggs. Keeping them nice and aligned, keeping them nice and neat inside of there, and you just want to close it up. And I've never done this before, you guys. I've never done this before. I just, like I said, I developed a good cooking instinct from watching my grandmother cook, my older cousins, my aunts, my dad. My dad is a really good cook. And so from watching them, and my mom, of course, my mom can slam in the kitchen. I mean, well, not so much these days. She doesn't cook as much as she used to, but when I was growing up, Mom could slam in the kitchen, y'all. But anyway, I just was able to have so many good cooks around me, and I just learned things. Like when you watch for so long, certain things just come instinctually, just like people who live on like farms and stuff like that. They just know about animals, farm animals. They know when an animal's pregnant. They don't even need to check, you know, like it's things like that, you know. So I just developed really good cooking instincts when I was younger, just from watching. And so, you know, like I said, I've never done this, but when you have cooking skills and cooking instincts, I would say more cooking instincts than skills, because you don't even need skill. But when you have good cooking instincts, you can figure out anything in the kitchen. Anything, you guys, like anything. So that's looking really, really good. And one thing with meatloaf, I've made enough meatloaves in my life to know that you want to make sure it doesn't have any cracks going in the oven. So if you see any like little crack openings, make sure to squeeze those really tight and kind of mix them so that everything is like sealed. And this is like the perfect height of meatloaf. This is the perfect size of meatloaf to cook for an hour in a 350-degree oven. So you all can see how pretty that is looking. Oh my goodness. I like to cook my meatloaf for the first hour covered with foil. And then once I add my glaze, I cook it again for about 20 minutes closer to the broiler. So this is ready. I'm gonna cover it up with foil. I can go ahead and remove these now. And I'm gonna cover it with foil and pop it into the oven. And this is what our glaze is looking like now. It has darkened a lot. It has thickened quite a bit. And this is going to be perfect for me to glaze the meatloaf with after it cooks for about an hour. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now so that it can just sort of thicken as it sits. And yeah, this is going to be so good on top of the meatloaf. It has those onions in there. It has some garlic. And then it has all of those sauces that I shared with you guys. So yeah, and one thing I forgot to show you before I mixed the meatloaf is that I did add the seasonings that I shared with you all. I don't know if I showed that before I started mixing with my hands, but make sure you add the seasonings before you go ahead and start mixing your meatloaf. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit. Meatloaf is in the oven, 350 for an hour. And you can always use a thermometer to stick inside. You want it to be about 165 degrees, I believe, but I don't do that. Like I said, instincts cooking, y'all. So see you in an hour. Okay everyone, so we are ready to start on our next recipe, which is going to be our white cheddar hamburger helper. This recipe is so delicious, it's delectable, it's just rich and good, and it really is a great spin on hamburger helper. You're not going to be using the boxed hamburger helper with like the yellow cheese powder. You're going to be basically making your own cheese. And it's just so good. I promise you, if you try this, make this for your family with like a little side salad or some vegetables on the side, they will want you to make it all the time. It's so good. I love it. My boyfriend loves it. My sister loves it. So yeah, that's the next recipe. I'm going to spin you guys around right now so I can show you the ingredients and then we'll get into it. This one is super easy. Alrighty, so getting into the ingredients for the white cheddar hamburger helper, you're first going to use organic ground chicken, or you can also use ground beef if you want to. And if you are vegan or vegetarian, you can substitute with Beyond Meat. You can substitute with ground walnuts or pecans. I've seen people do that. However you want to do, you can certainly substitute it, but I like to use organic meats wherever possible. So when you see me cooking in these videos, you'll mostly see organic meats because I think it's just cleaner and healthier. So I'm using organic chicken for this recipe instead of beef. I also have some sour cream here, diced onions. These are my herbs that I chopped earlier that I'll be using for this recipe as well. I have some white cheddar here. Normally I try to grate my cheddar, but you know, this cheddar is fine for this recipe. I mean, it is, you know, cheeseburger helper. I got some Parmesan. I also have this pasta. Now you can definitely use dry pasta. You don't have to use the pasta I'm going to show you. Dry pasta is fine, but I found this shortcut. You just cook these bags in the microwave for 60 seconds and they're always al dente and really good, and they're cheap. I got got them very affordable. I think they were like $1.99 at Kroger's or Ralph's. So we have Ralph's here, but these are really, really good if you don't want to overcook your pasta. So I have 3 of those that I'll be using. For the sauce, you're going to need this white cheddar powder. You can get this on Amazon. You can also get it at Smart and Final if you live in Southern California. You can get it at Sam's Club, and I will link it for you from the Amazon website. That's where I got this big tub from. Heavy whipping cream, got my utensils here, seasonings, pepper, salt, garlic salt, and you're gonna need some red pepper flakes because we always like a little bit of heat in all of our recipes. So, and just a quick tip, I always like to go in and cut up this meat with my kitchen shears because it's in these lines and sometimes those are hard to break up. So it's good to go in with your kitchen shears and just kind of cut them before you put it in the skillet. So I'm gonna do that. But first we're gonna go in with our onions, then we're gonna add our meat, then we're gonna add our sauce, and this is gonna come together real quick. Alrighty, so I went ahead and added some oil to the skillet and some salt and pepper to cook down my onions. And then I'm gonna go in with my ground chicken after the onions get nice and translucent. So I'm gonna let those cook for about 5 minutes, and then we're gonna add our ground chicken. We're gonna add our herbs. We're gonna add our cheese powder and that heavy cream. This recipe comes together really fast, you all, really fast. And my sister is here. She just got here. Say hey, sis.
Hey, everybody.
So she's gonna be my taste tester when the meatloaf comes out of the oven and when our cheeseburger helper is done. She won't be here to taste the shrimp pot pie because I'm gonna make that tomorrow, but she'll be here to taste the other 2 things. So I went ahead and threw my ground turkey into the pan after those onions got nice and translucent. My sister gave me a tip. She said instead of chopping up the ground beef or ground turkey, just form it into a ball and then it won't have those lines in it. And that is genius, okay? Like, that shit is genius, okay? And I was like, what? And I did it, and I'm so happy she told me about that. But anyway, now we're gonna add some salt and pepper. I did go in with my Kinder's garlic salt here, added some of that already. That's what you saw sitting on top. But now we're gonna go in with a little bit of salt, regular salt and pepper. We want this to be nicely seasoned. You know, it's upgraded, so you know, definitely want to make sure your seasonings are on point when you're trying to upgrade an old school recipe. Your seasonings gotta be on point. So we're going in with salt, pepper, red pepper flakes, and we're just going to brown this ground chicken as much as we can. It's kind of hard to brown ground chicken, but we're gonna do what we can. We're gonna let it cook nice and just let it brown and keep kind of turning it over and stirring it so it can get some color on it. Alrighty, so we got some nice color on our ground chicken. It is looking so good and smelling good as well. So we're ready to go in with pretty much all of the rest of our ingredients. So I'm first gonna go in with my sour cream, and I'm gonna be using about a cup of sour cream. This is a rich dish, and you know, it's cheeseburger helper. I mean, if you're looking for something healthy, this ain't the recipe. But if you're looking for something that stick to the bones and is good, that your husband will like, your kids will like, this is the recipe. So now I'm gonna also go in with my heavy whipping cream, and this is gonna be about a cup left in this bottle. So I'm gonna pour that in. Like I said, it's rich. Now I'm also gonna go in with that cheddar powder, that white cheddar powder. Gonna go ahead and pour that in, and this is 1 cup of that. I'm gonna dump that right in. Give it a stir so that sour cream can melt into the pan. And this is my large caraway pan that I'm using. Y'all know I love some caraway. No sponsorship. I just love their pans because nothing sticks to them. You can cook things that are crazy cheesy and just really gooey. Nothing sticks to them. You can just wipe them out with like a damp or wet cloth. So y'all know how I hate washing dishes. Caraway pans are just bomb. But look how creamy that got. Look at how creamy that got so quick, y'all. So quick. And I'm starting to cook my pasta in the microwave right now also, you all. So if you hear the pasta going, that's what you're hearing in the background. So we're just gonna add that in, and then this dish will be done once I add the pasta in. But that looks amazing. Now I'm gonna go in with some of that mild white cheddar. Lucerne is really good cheese, you all. I don't know if you have access to that brand, but if you don't want to shred your own cheese, this happens to be a really good brand of cheese. It gets nice and gooey. It's almost like shredding your own cheese. I really like this brand of cheese. It never lets me down. So I've added about half the bag of that cheese, not the entire bag. And that's the microwave beeping. Sorry, y'all. And we're just gonna let that melt in. And it is getting very, very thick. Instead of adding chicken broth or anything like that to this, I'm just gonna go in with some water. I took out a fresh bottle of water, so I'm gonna go in with a little water in there because I want it thick and rich, but you don't want it too thick and rich. Alrighty, so we are on the home stretch with our cheeseburger helper, our white cheddar cheeseburger helper. I went ahead and cooked those noodles in the microwave for exactly 1 minute, and they're nice and al dente. I like the way they taste and the way they feel. I went ahead and tasted one, and I was like, okay, this will work. So now I'm stirring them in along with some of my parsley. You guys know from the other recipe I had that curly and flat leaf parsley, so I'm just stirring that in with the noodles, and I am going to add some more cheese. Before I completely finish this, I'm going to add the rest of that cheese from the bag. But this looks amazing. It smells so good, and it looks really good, and it definitely reminds me of the cheeseburger helper from when I was a kid. It looks like it, but it's white. It's just creamy white cheddar. A nice creamy white cheddar version of that old school classic. So I'm feeling it. I would recommend y'all try it. Sprinkling in the last of the cheese, and me and Sissy are gonna give it a taste along with that meatloaf. Okay, you guys, so disaster has struck. The meatloaf, it opened, and I specifically told y'all when I talked about sealing the meatloaf to make sure you seal it good, and apparently I didn't seal mine good because it opened. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and pour the glaze on the meatloaf and get her all glazed up. Instead of spooning it, I think I'm just gonna take the pan and just drizzle it over. It's still gonna be good. You know, it's not gonna look as pretty as I wanted it to, but it's still gonna taste good at least. So it is what it is, honestly. At this point, y'all, I'm like, oh no. Okay, so the meatloaf is all glazed up with that honey teriyaki glaze. I'm gonna pop it back into the oven for about 15 minutes close to the broiler, and it's gonna get nice and caramelized, and we'll be ready to slice into it. It's gonna be good regardless, but doesn't look like I hoped it would. Okay, everyone, so the meatloaf is out of the oven. The glaze is looking very luscious and shiny and good, and of course our white cheddar cheeseburger helper is ready to go. So now I'm gonna go ahead and plate everything up, and me and my sister are gonna taste it. We're gonna let y'all know how it is. We're gonna give you the real, and then we're gonna move on to our last recipe. So here are the completed plates, and despite the meatloaf opening up at the top, I think it still came out really, really good. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it. And I'm gonna leave some tips and tricks in the description of what you might do differently to avoid what happened to me happening to you. So I'll leave that in the description along with the instructions, but me and my sister are going to test our plates. So I'm gonna turn you guys around so you can watch, and we can chit chat and move on to the next recipe. All right, so the sister is joining me so we can test these recipes. If you don't know, this is my sister Eli. We are twins. Hi. Go in so they can see. We are twins, and we don't look exactly alike now, but we are identical twins. We just look different, you know, it just happens. But this is my sister. If you would like to follow my sister, she's an amazing travel blogger. You can follow her at Discovering Eli on Instagram. I will link her Instagram in the description, but you can always follow her there. Anything you want to say to the people?
No, just thank you for being here, and I love her food. I can't wait.
Yeah, I love her food too. My sister can cook. She can jam in the kitchen. Like, she's so elegant. Yeah, all of her plates and stuff are nice. She's just into nice things. So I'm very blessed to have my twin. But we're gonna test the white cheddar hamburger helper or cheeseburger helper, and we're gonna test the teriyaki meatloaf with eggs inside. So
looks
let me know what you think.
Gotta get some chicken.
It's good, huh?
It's so good.
You can taste the sour cream. And that white cheddar powder is really
I love
good.
it. It's got a lot of protein in it too. I love that.
Yeah. I I put a lot of ground chicken in there. And you can definitely make this recipe very affordable. You don't have to go with organic ground chicken. The noodles were only $1.99 a pack. Those little microwavable noodles. The white cheddar powder, like I said, you can get that on Amazon. You can get that at Smart & Final or whatever. And then of course the white cheddar, the shredded cheese in the bag. You can get those bags super cheap at like Target, Walmart. But I'm ready to taste my meatloaf. We're going into meatloaf now, y'all. Teriyaki meatloaf. I like the egg in the middle. It looks so good. It came out good. It came out pretty good. It's moist. It's really moist.
It's got a little tang to it. I like the topping.
It is really good. I mean, you can still add.
You did a good job.
Ketchup on top if you want to. A1 sauce on it if you want to. But the teriyaki tastes so good and made it so moist.
You can add ketchup to your teriyaki sauce.
That's true. It's really good. It's so really good, y'all. Really good recipes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got one more recipe in this video. That's gonna be my Sunday dinner recipe, and that is shrimp pot pie. So that'll be the next recipe. It'll be another day. It'll be tomorrow, so I'll be looking different. But that'll be the last recipe because growing up, we really love chicken pot pie. Like these were my favorites growing up. Our mom could slay in the kitchen, like straight up. She cooked so good, and then we moved with our grandmother, who, I mean, you know, who's grandma? I mean, who's Nona? Who's Lola? That's a Filipino term for grandma. Lola. Nona is the Italian term. Nana, okay, that's the European term.
Granny.
Everybody granny can cook. So when we went to live with our granny, that's where we really learned how to cook. So
yeah.
That's why I told you guys, like, that cooking instinct, that's where it started to really kick in for us when we moved with our grandmother, because we had our aunts around us, our older cousins around us cooking, our grandmother, of course, and still my mom too. So it was pretty awesome. So we have really good cooking instincts between the two of us, and yeah, this is really good. I think that last recipe is gonna be a really good one too though, y'all. So one more recipe coming up. We're gonna eat now and see y'all tomorrow.
See you, bye.
Hey everyone, welcome to day 2 of this cook with me video and recipe number 3. Growing up, chicken pot pie was one of my favorite things that my mom would make. I'd love to eat it on like a cold or rainy day. And the best part, of course, was the crust. Y'all know the crust is just everything in a chicken pot pie. Well, today we're gonna be making a pot pie, but we're gonna be upgrading it from a chicken pot pie. We are going to be making shrimp pot pie. And this is one of my favorite recipes that I make for myself. I actually really love my recipe that I came up with, and I think you guys are gonna really love it too, because it's simple, it's easy, and it's super delicious. And you can make a small, like, individual size pot pie in like a small little ramekin or a small little Dutch oven, like those Dutch ovens I have from Target, or you can make a larger pan. So I love that about this recipe. You can just increase the portions. It's really easy to do because it's just mostly vegetables, a little cream, and of course your shrimp. But it's such a good recipe. I'm excited to share it with you all. So let me go ahead, strap on my apron, turn you guys around, show you the ingredients, and then we will get into this recipe. Oh, and I got my cocktail here today, y'all. So it might get a little extra up in here today. Okay, so just to show you all the ingredients in the shrimp pot pie really quick, the first thing you're gonna need is diced potatoes, and these are 2 medium-sized russet potatoes that I've diced up into small pieces. You're also gonna need the traditional pot pie vegetables. So I have the traditional mix here with string beans, carrots, and corn, but I also will be adding this one, which has golden white corn, it has carrots, and it has asparagus in it. I thought it would be really delicious to add that, so I'll be adding both of these 2 to the pot pie. I also have my pie crust here. I'm gonna be putting pie crust on the bottom of the pot pie, and I'm gonna be using puff pastry on the top because I just love the way the puff pastry tastes and the way it looks on the pot pie. Traditionally, I like to get the pie crust that you just roll out, the flat one, but they didn't have any more since we're close to the holidays, so I just bought these 2-pack of pie crust, and I will use these in the bottom of the pan. I also have my garlic here, my little frozen garlic. My little words are starting to rub off there. But I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic. I have some grated Parmesan here that I just grated. diced onions. I also have some of that parsley that I used in the other recipe. This is the curly parsley and flat leaf parsley. Of course, you're gonna need shrimp, and these are medium shrimp. I have whipping cream. I have some cream of mushroom soup. You can also use cream of chicken, doesn't really matter. And I have my seasonings here, pepper, salt. This is everything but the leftover seasoning from Trader Joe's. It's just a really nice savory seasoning, and it's really good. And then for a little bit of heat, I have some cayenne pepper. Just kidding. Cayenne pepper here, you guys. For my dish, I will be using this Le Creuset deep dish that I got from TJ Maxx. So I'll be using that for my pot pie. And I have a pot on the stove with some oil in it to start baking off my onions, sauteing them really good. A little bit of that garlic. And then I also have a pot of hot water on the stove right there that you see smoking for the potatoes, because you will need to boil those a little bit because these vegetables, all you have to do is really heat them through, but these you'll need to cook for a little bit. So you'll need to boil these for about 10 minutes, and then they'll be ready to add to the pot pie. So let's go ahead and start cooking, y'all. So really quick, you all, I just took the butter out of the refrigerator, so I realized that I didn't include it in the ingredients. So you're gonna need some butter for this recipe. An entire stick is best. And then also I went ahead and chopped up my shrimp while I was waiting for my pot to get warm. And now I just added my onions to the oil. I am gonna go ahead and add some of that butter to this oil as well. But first I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to the pot, and just to season things up a little bit and get the seasoning started. Little salt, little pepper, give that a stir. And the pot was really hot, so my onions are already starting to brown, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That's just flavor. Now we're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of that garlic to the pot. So I'm just breaking up the garlic. I don't want it to burn like I almost burned my onions. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my frozen vegetables now. I'm gonna first go in with that vegetable medley with the string beans, carrots, and corn. And then I'm gonna go in with the golden white corn, the asparagus, and carrots. Pour that right in there. I'm also gonna go in with my seasoning. So first I'm gonna add that everything but the leftover seasoning. And I want a good amount of that since I'm not adding too much salt. I do want some good flavor in this pot pie. So I'm gonna shake in a good amount of that seasoning. I'm also gonna go in with my cayenne pepper, because like I said, I wanted to have a little bit of a kick, nothing too crazy, but I like everything to have a little bit of spice, so that's good. Give that a stir. And let those vegetables warm through a little bit. And then we're gonna go ahead and start adding our liquids, our herbs, our heavy cream and Parmesan, our potatoes, and then we're gonna fill our pot pie. So our vegetables are nice and warm through. I went ahead and added the about half a stick of the butter to the pot. I also added my herbs, so you can see they coated the vegetables nicely. Now we're ready to go ahead and add those potatoes that I boiled for about 10 to 15 minutes to the pot. And I'm just gonna use a spider to scoop those out. And it's okay if you add some of the water, because we're gonna need some water in this recipe anyway. So just go ahead and kind of scoop those out. And sorry if it's getting a little foggy from the steam. Y'all know how it is when you're cooking. Lots of steam. Alrighty, so I think I got most of the potatoes out of there. And that should be good. So I'm just gonna give that a quick stir. Mix everything in. Now we're ready to go in with our heavy whipping cream. I'm gonna pour that into the pot. And I'm using this entire carton, and this is a 1 pint carton, so 16 ounces. Sorry you guys about the smokiness, but we're using a 16-ounce carton. I'm also gonna go in with our cream of mushroom soup. So we're gonna dump that in. If I can do it one-handed. Yep, we got it. We got it, y'all. Sorry about the shake. Give that all a little stir. And I'm not gonna add my Parmesan until I'm ready to go ahead and pour this mixture into the pan, because the Parmesan, as the filling heats up, it'll start to stick to the bottom of your pot. So you really want to add the Parmesan kind of like last, as well as the shrimp, because you don't want your shrimp to overcook. The heat from this mixture is gonna cook the shrimp so quickly that you really don't need to add them until you're getting ready to pour this mixture into the pan. So I'm just gonna let this heat up. I am gonna go ahead and add about a cup of water to this, because I already know it's going to be really thick, and I don't want it too thick because we are going to be adding cheese and so on. So this is going to be perfect for the consistency. If you guys can see the consistency, it's sort of coating the spoon but not too thick yet, but in a little bit you'll see it'll get a lot thicker, because that cream of mushroom soup, it is going to thicken up this mixture a lot. So we're going to let this warm all the way through, and in the meantime I'm going to go ahead and put my pie crust in the bottom of my porcelain pan so we can start prepping to pour it into the pan. So we'll work on that while this heats through. So I went ahead and took my pie crust and put them in the bottom of my pan here, and I'm just taking a fork and punching some holes so that this doesn't rise. I'm gonna bake this crust for about 10 minutes so that it'll stay nice and flat and it won't rise up. And also, you don't want it to be raw, so you do want to kind of just bake it a little bit before you pour your filling into the pie crust or pot pie crust. Also, I wanted to tell you guys, I save these pans. Do y'all save these pans? Like my grandmother used to save these pans. So now I save these pans and I send them home with people with food in them. So like if somebody comes over and I make them a plate, I'll make it in this and wrap it with foil, and they can just pop it into the oven instead of the microwave. So I save these pans when I buy pie crust. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and pop this into a 350-degree oven now to let it bake off a little bit. And it's gonna get a little brown. It's not gonna cook completely, but it is gonna get brown, and that's gonna, you know, make sure that the crust is not raw when I feel it. So pop that into the oven, and we're just about ready to go. Our pie filling with the vegetables, the cream of mushroom soup and everything, and the potatoes has come to a nice simmer. It's nice and hot. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add in the rest of the ingredients. So I'm gonna add in about 1.5 cups of Parmesan cheese. I know that Parmesan cheese isn't a traditional ingredient in a pot pie, but I love the flavor that it brings to this particular pot pie. So Parmesan cheese, definitely upgrading the pot pie vibe, okay? And now I'm gonna also add in my shrimp, which I did go ahead and chop up into pieces. So we're gonna go ahead and pour those pieces in. They're gonna cook really, really quickly. So what I'm gonna do is actually turn off the filling now, because the residual heat will cook the shrimp that's in there. So you don't want your shrimp to overcook. This does have to go in the oven for a little while to cook off the topping, the puff pastry. So you don't want the shrimp to overcook during any of that process. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it off now and let the residual heat cook the shrimp. And we're gonna just let that sit while our pie crust browns a little bit. It's gonna be about 10 minutes. I set my timer, so ready to go. We are ready to fill this pot pie, pop it in the oven, brown the top. Y'all, this is gonna be so bomb. Okay, so I went ahead and removed my pie crust from the oven, and as you can see, it did cook a little bit. The sides started to brown a little bit, and that is perfectly fine. I have my puff pastry laid out right here. Oops. Have it laid out right here, and I use 4 panels of that puff pastry that I'm gonna kind of lay on the top, and then I'll just take my kitchen shears and cut off the sides. But what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and ladle in that filling. I'm just gonna put that into the pan right on top of that par-baked pie crust. And I really want to add a lot of the chunky bits because I want this to be very, very filling. So I want to make sure to get all that chunkiness. If it's not all able to fit in there, I want all the chunky bits at least. So we're gonna just ladle that in. And the base really is like a soup. Honestly, you could eat this like a soup. You really could. And if you want it thicker, you can definitely add a cornstarch slurry to it. You can mash up the potatoes a little bit more if you want to. There's quite a few things you can do to make the base thicker, but I kind of like it just the way it is. So Just gonna ladle that in, and that's all that Parmesan, the vegetables, the heavy cream, the butter, and of course the chopped up shrimp, all those herbs. This is gonna be so, so delicious. And you wanna fill it almost to the top, you really do. And I'll definitely eat the rest of this filling as like a soup. I'll eat it with some crackers, so not too worried about what's left over. This is what's left in the pot, so it's quite a bit in there, but that is fine. Now I'm just gonna go on top of that pan with my puff pastry. Just gonna lay it over. I like a nice rustic look, so just gonna lay that over, and I'm gonna take this extra panel and just lay it over here. Kind of try to pinch it a little bit to that other part. And then I'm gonna take my kitchen shears, which, where are they? Where are they? Oh, here they are. Sorry, you guys, I washed them. Now I'm gonna just take my kitchen shears and cut off the excess. If you guys can see that, I'm just kind of cutting that off. It's just basically the four corners of it. It's kind of draping over on the sides a little bit, but not too much, so that's fine. And like I said, I do want to take these sides here and kind of pinch them a little bit so that when it bakes, they do kind of come together. And that's perfect. This is gonna puff up so nicely and look so good. I still have my oven on. It's on 350 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this and put it inside of the oven. Bake it for 350 degrees until the topping is nice and brown. It's gonna depend on your oven, so I don't wanna really give a time, but I'd say about 15 minutes, this top should be brown. But before I do that, I do wanna brush on some butter. Almost forgot. Let me brush on some butter for you guys so you can see that part, and then we'll place this in the oven. So I have some melted butter here that I just melted for about 30 seconds. And I'm gonna brush that on top of the puff pastry so that it'll get nice and brown and beautiful. I'm just using a pastry brush from TJ Maxx. Just gonna brush that on nicely. So we want a nice buttery flavor on that puff pastry. It's gonna be so good. We have the pie crust on the bottom. We have the puff pastry on the top. And if you are vegetarian, I wanted to mention, you can certainly leave off the shrimp. If you are, you know, non-seafood eating, non-pescatarian, you can leave off the shrimp. You can add mushrooms. I don't know how you would substitute the cream and so forth if you're vegan, but I'm sure there's options out there for you out there who are vegan to, you know, substitute the butter and so on. But now that we have all of that brushed with that butter, I'm gonna make sure to get the edges and everything so that everything can get nice and brown. We are ready to place this into our 350 degree oven. And like I said, it's gonna depend on, the timing is gonna depend on your oven. For mine, this will take about 15 minutes to brown, so in the oven it goes. Okay, you all, so my pot pie is in the oven for about 15 minutes, and I wanted to share a little tip and trick with you all. The rest of my pie filling, I went ahead and put in this disposable soup container. You can get these on Amazon. I think I forgot to link these on my last video, but I will link them in the description, the ones that I actually buy. And these are great for freezing things. They're also great for like giving people, you know, soup to take home and so forth, but I don't think they're great for microwaving. You can only microwave these about once or twice, and then they start to release a chemical. So that's why I like to use them like for work. I'll take it to work, microwave my soup, and then I'll just throw it away after I'm done, versus like using it over and over and over. You want to buy specific containers that don't release chemicals if you're gonna be microwaving them over and over. You don't wanna use these, but these are great for freezer storage. So I put the rest of the pie filling in here, the pot pie filling, and I will definitely be using it for a later date. I'll probably make small pot pies in my little Dutch ovens from Target. I love these little hearth and hand Dutch ovens. So I'll probably, you know, put some pie crust in there and put some puff pastry on top and use this at a later date for that. But yeah, you can definitely store the rest of your filling if you have some left over, or you can just use a bigger container. I decided to make a smaller, you know, pot of pot pie or a smaller pan of pot pie, but you can definitely use a bigger pan and use all of the filling. But if you don't, store it in a nice container, put it in your freezer, and you can always use it at a later date. So I wanted to share that with you all while my pot pie is baking. I can't wait to see how it's gonna look. I know it's gonna be really, really good, and hopefully I can get my boyfriend to taste it on camera with you guys. Okay, you guys, so my pot pie is out of the oven and it is beautiful. Look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. I mean, golden brown on top, buttery, those crispy, nice, gooey layers of the puff pastry, and then you have the pie crust on the bottom, and then you have that delicious filling with the shrimp, the vegetables, the parmesan, the cream, the butter. Girl, this is the meal right here. You can serve this alongside with a side salad. You can serve this with a side of broccoli or something like that if you want to. But you know, me, I'm just gonna scoop it into a bowl, girl, and eat it. But it is out of the oven. It's gonna need a few minutes to cool and settle for a minute. I don't want to scoop into it right away. I'm hoping that when my boyfriend comes, he will test it on camera with you guys, you know, just for visual interest. You feel me? But it's nice to incorporate family and your loved ones into these kind of videos. So hopefully I can get him to taste it on camera. You know, I am kind of leery about sharing my partner because I've heard nightmare stories about people who have shared their partners online, but you know, 5 years deep, ain't nothing really anybody could say. You know, my, man is a beautiful black man and he is just everything. So hopefully I can get him to stand right here and taste this with me when he gets here, but we'll see. But anyway, I'm gonna let it sit, let her chill for a minute, and then we're gonna dig into this last recipe. Okay, so my boyfriend is here and he told me no. He does not want to be on camera, so he's gonna taste it. He's standing right there behind the camera, y'all. So say hi, baby.
Hi, baby.
He's gonna taste the pot pie and tell me what he thinks, where you guys can just hear his reaction or his thoughts.
Hot.
Yeah, it's hot, baby. You're gonna have to blow on it a little bit. Let me get the crust. You know, the crust is where it's at. Okay, let me get you a little spoon, babe. This is real time, y'all. Okay, baby, blow it. It's hot. And just tell us what you think. Tell the people what you think of the pot pie, the flavors. He's a seafood lover, so.
Sure will. Let me get everything in one bite.
He likes seafood, so I think he'll like it.
That's good.
Good?
No.
I'm glad you like it, babe. He likes it, y'all. He likes it.
Wow, that's real good.
He don't want to be on camera right now, but if you ever want to see my other half, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen him a million times. I always post him on there, so. But yeah, it's Sunday, so he's chilling. He ain't trying to be all up in this. But anyway, thank y'all so much for sitting with another Cook With Me video, chilling with me, hanging out. I really enjoy making this video, so stay tuned for more. As we get to the holidays, I'm definitely going to be bringing you guys a lot more of these videos, so stay tuned, and I will see you all on the next one. Bye, y'all. Say bye, babe.
Bye.